Hello, everybody. So glad to see you back after a successful Saab owners convention out in Sturgis, South Dakota. Great time with lots of folks there. And that's going to be our primary focus tonight, is sort of a recap, giving you a look back at some of the winners in case you weren't able to make the trip, some of the fantastic cars that were there, and all the great people that you see each year at this convention. So we've got a lot to cover tonight. Daniel Cahill, the VP of the Saab Club of North America, is going to be joining us in just a moment or two. I've got a few things I want to get through before we get there. And one of them is kind of a little my personal road story here. It was a lot of fun taking my 28-year-old car on the road, and I did it in the company of these guys. So my convoy partners were Neil Davis here in the front, Demi Voltanis, Todd Tribble, his son Colin, and there's that big geek in the background there. And we traveled in a little convoy and pretty successfully got through thousands of miles. As everybody knows, Sturgis, South Dakota is where the convention was this year, and it quite literally is in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful. Don't mean that to be an insult at all. I was blown away at how lovely that area is, but it's way out in the middle of nowhere, and so lots of people traveled lots of miles, and I didn't hear too many problems. They were usually on the scale of kind of what happened to me. So somewhere in Iowa, I threw an alternator belt, and thank goodness Saab designed with redundancy in mind, and the cars are equipped with two belts. And thank goodness Demi Voltanis, who is a Saab master tech, been at the game for 40 years, had one of those belts in his trunk, and we were able to get it fixed and get back on the road. So, a minor little snag for me, but I think lots of people had little issues like that along the way. And then a member in our squad, Todd Tribble, had an interesting scenario. Brand new tires on his lovely Saab 900 sedan, 1984 8-valve sedan, and picked up, well, you got to see this thing. And we were able to repair the tire in the parking lot because, when you travel with mechanics, there's a lot of knowledge on board. So take a look at how this all came down. All right, so there is a pretty sizable bolt that Todd picked up, and we're going to do a quick repair here in the parking lot. Go ahead and jerk that thing out of there. Let's see that thing. Oh man, that's a self-tapping screw. Look at the size of that thing. Describe what you're doing, Neil.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the
theater light here.
There we go. Now I can see. I'm looking for the hole, and I'm going to clean it out a little bit so we can get the new plug in there.
You can hear it rubbing against those
Steel belts.
yeah,
Yep.
steel belts. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to stop right here so we can put some air in the tire, or else it'll be a nightmare to force this plug in.
Be careful. What are you doing?
Lubricating the tip of the plug to make it go through the tire a little easier. Oh, yes, absolutely. Nothing but the best. They call it a temporary repair, but most tires, the plugs stay in them for a lifetime. Sometimes they'll start leaking with age, and you pull the plug out and throw another one in, and
There you go. You got
it goes on. But if it's a brand new tire, better to patch it from the inside, which is more permanent.
So how far in? How do you know when you're fully in there?
Well, you don't want to push it too far. You want to leave a little bit sticking out.
Okay.
And give the plug a little twist so it locks, and pull it out. After we're done, we're going to shave the end off so it doesn't create an issue.
And
That's
you're good
it.
to go.
We're back in business. And we were.
So patching a tire in the Walmart parking lot that easy with materials that they bought inside for like $8 or $9. I knew about patching and plugging a tire, but had never really seen it done. So it was cool to see how easy that is. And of course, I now have a tire plugging kit in my boot, so I'm not going to be stranded on the side of the road if that ever happens. One of the advantages of traveling with a professional mechanic like Neil Davis there. So, hey, the chat is open if you guys want to jump in and ask your questions or comments about SOC. Love to have you there. And of course, always like to give a shout out to our sponsor, ToughGuard DIY, the paint protection system that is so easy to use. It is designed for home use, unlike the complexity of ceramics This is a nano resin that seals your paint and will last you for up to 5 years. The gloss on this is fantastic. They also have a product called ToughGuard DIY, kind of an instant detailing spray, and you can order both of those at toughguarddiy.com, toughguarddiy.com. And it sure was great to see several cars at SOC that had ToughGuard on their cars. And I found when I got home, I had treated my bumper with just with Speed Guard. I didn't have any Tough Guard to put on it at the time, but sure made the bugs a lot easier to clean off. It's one of the advantages. It seals the paint, makes cleanup just a heck of a lot easier. Cost to you $99 for the Tough Guard DIY. If you want to go out there, go to toughguarddiy.com and you can order now at that special price. It's not going to last much longer. All right, so let's bounce back out to Sturgis, South Dakota. And one of the cool things always is looking at what guys are doing to their cars. So here's a 9.3 and done by a gentleman down in Arizona. We're going to feature him in the future. Lots of great mods on this car. Beautiful work, nice engineering. He's got the transmission out of a diesel in Europe in this car right now. Also had some time with Dennis Lynn, his beautiful 1989 900 sedan. He has owned this thing since new, and wow, get under the hood. And Dennis has done some tremendous engineering. Those are coils out of a supercharged Corvette he's got running this car. And look at this. This is just artwork. This is his custom fabricated, did it himself, header system. And this car has got so many rich modifications all the way through. Can't wait to feature Dennis in a future episode, and we'll do that. Richard Rios, glad that you were there. Yeah, 2,000 miles, well worth the round trip. I totally agree. There are also, modifications is part of the game with our cars, and this one really caught my eye in the parking lot out there. Did you see this? Well, if you weren't there, you didn't, but it's a Saab 99 turbo that's been converted into a pickup truck. What a cool piece of work this was. Beautiful engineering, lovely work all the way around. Really very, very cool. And I love how people get serious about making this trip. So here's a much older Saab that was along for the ride. And man, they came prepared. They were packed for bear. And look at all the stuff they managed to stuff into this car. Don't know if that's a two-cylinder or a V4, or I mean, a two-cycle or a V4, but either way, man, that old Saab was working pretty hard. All in the mail. Don't know where they were from, but if you do, share it in the chat. That's really a great example. I met some guy, a couple that came really, I think, the furthest. I mean, lots of folks came from the East Coast and the West Coast, and we drove whatever it was, 1,300 miles to get from my house to there. Uh, but that's nothing compared to Frederick Enkendal. He and his partner came all the way from Stockholm, Sweden, and they came to the United States. They bought a car on the East Coast and then drove the country roads, the back roads, state road highways, all the way to Sturgis. Here's Fred.
It's a 03, 93 SE with a sport package. It means I have the vegan parts on it, so vegan interior. It's an automatic. It's run 218,000 now, but you can't tell. Everyone asks us if it's a low mileage car, so it's very well preserved. The car runs great. We are very happy. Of course, some Saab lights going on the dash. Not a Saab without that.
That's right. So, and what did you pay for this car?
$2,000.
How much would this car cost in Sweden?
It's probably around $14,000 car in Sweden. They didn't sell them. The sticker price on this car was $44,500 in 2003. If it's a rocky one in Sweden, they maybe cost like $8,000. But this is a high-end car with the interior and this vegan package. So it's a fun car.
How about that? A 7x value. So he and his partner Yurda are going to be sending the car back over to Stockholm. It's actually going to wind up being Yurda's car. It's one of, I think she says, 6 that they own. And we had a good conversation about how pricing is so much different in Sweden for a lot of things. And part of Frederick's business is coming here to the United States and actually gathering up Saab parts and sending them back to Sweden where he sells them. So we're going to connect with Frederick down the road and we'll have you meet him, and we'll learn more about the Saab communities over in Sweden. Pretty interesting experience talking with him. So I wanted to get us connected now to Daniel Cahill. You probably know Daniel. He's the vice president of the Saab Club of North America. Daniel, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Lee. Always good to be here.
Glad to have you. Tell me about attendance this year at SOC. How'd we do?
Well, we are excited to have the 39th Sub Owners Convention launched out in Sturgis. We had roughly a little over 500 folks register for the event, and we're still waiting on an accurate car count because there's such a mix of local cars and those that have registered, and strays that sort of showed up as well as a lot of the museum cars that are in restoration or on their last leg. So it's kind of hard to get an accurate count, but we'll know. But great attendance for being such a remote location. So we're pretty excited that people were able to join us in the magnitude that they did. And with that said, the numbers are roughly showing about 60% of them are first-time attendees.
Wow.
So we thought that was a big deal too. So
that is a big deal.
I don't know that we've seen it quite that high from a percentage, but certainly the museum was a big draw, and I'm very glad that a lot of people got to check that off their bucket list.
Yeah, my first time at the museum. In fact, I realize now I hadn't mentioned that the reason it was held in Sturgis is that's where the Saab Heritage Museum of the USA is located, and really cool place. Interesting cars that we'll give you another look around here down the road in the future just a little bit. What I want to do, Daniel, is I'm going to just let the winners list roll. Part of the show each year is kind of a friendly competition. And so while we take a look at some of the cars and the folks that won it, let's talk a little bit more about the club, the show, what's coming up next year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So walk us through what do you think was the big success for this year?
Well, I think certainly it was a little bit of a geographical gamble to try to host it in such a remote area. But again, the museum, we knew that would be a huge draw, and the curators of the museum, Tom and Patty Donnie, who are the main drivers behind that, plus all of their board members, have really put a lot of sweat equity into launching it. It's been roughly about 5 years now, so we knew it was important. So obviously, the significant anniversary, the 75th, it all just felt right to get it to launch at this time, especially with the challenges with COVID and things like that. And then also on the tail ends of the 75th anniversary that was held in Sweden, in Trollhättan, and really all over the country just this year back in June. So there's a lot of momentum from that, and just celebrating the spirit. The spirit lives on. So we hosted it there, and we knew there'd be some logistical challenges with our particular model. For those of people in the audience that have been to SOCs in the past, of course, we have kind of a standard model, if you will, where it's a single venue, single hotel, and everything kind of happens all around one little hub. In this case, just because of logistics and accommodation reasons, it was sort of chopped up, and we knew that going into it. Posed a little bit of challenges, but I think at the end of the day, the people came because they wanted to see friends and make new ones, and then of course the cars. So.
Yeah, we were just looking there at the Concourse winners. Concourse is a competition against not each other, but against a brand standard. Just give us 30, 40 seconds, explain that to people who might not be familiar.
Sure. So I'm not an official Concourse trained judge. However, I can tell you they really take it serious. They do a great job of it. Gary Stotler has helped us for I can't even remember. I want to say every single SOC I've been to or been involved with, which is 11 of them consecutively. He's always stepped up to kind of lead that charge, and then he's training a new generation, and we appreciate him reaching out for those people that are interested in becoming a judge. As you said, you start off with a perfect score, if you will, and then you are deducted from there for certain things that are not factory spec or that are modified or aftermarket. Really, the goal is trying to see something that's in as close specification as it can be to original factory. We did make the decision. Again, this is not the level of concourse that you might see in Monterey Bay in California or something like that, Pebble Beach. But so we do try to let some of the rules flex to allow for modifications as the cars age. Sometimes that's going to happen. For instance, the one that you're looking at on the screen here, the wheel modification on that one would be allowed. We did look at it pretty heavily and decide that if an accessory was available through Saab at the time or period correct, that things can be adjusted in that regard. But it'd be a challenge, and people take it personally. But appreciate everybody stepping up. And again, it's a volunteer position, so it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of sunshine involved and a lot of attention to detail. So we'll go easy on the judges.
Yeah, there was just a heck of a lot of sunshine. Boy, it was hot, lovely, but hot, and took a toll on some of us out there. Yeah, it sure did. Um,
Yeah, and I guess it didn't help that we were, I don't know, 5 or 6,000 foot elevation above sea level, so you forget you're really that high up and that much closer to the sun.
yeah, exactly. Air's that much thinner. So, tell me more about what you see happening. Oh, wait, before we go there, I want to touch base on this. You said something earlier as we were talking about one of the missions of the club is really to keep the brand and the spirit alive. And you said it sometimes feels like we're doing animal rescue here with these cars. Tell me more about that.
Well, the way I see it, I'm a big animal lover myself, and when I look, I always love to see stories, really with any pool car, but certainly with Saabs, when you hear these rescue stories and hear cars that are on their last leg are basically destined for the slaughterhouse, if you want to, or euthanasia, if you want to tie it into animals, and then you hear how they get a second lease on life, and people show the before and after pictures. So it's always nice to see. Of course, I hate it when I see a Saab get crashed and we know it's totaled and it's ready to go to the junkyard, but we can kind of hope quietly and keep our fingers crossed that for every one that gets crashed off the road, another one comes out of restoration. And so I really like hearing the stories of people that rehab them or take in the wounded orphans or things like that and bring them back. And there's just countless stories of that. And some of these cars that we're scrolling on the screen here, of course, we don't have the before pictures, but I mean, I've been around the club long enough to know and see cars come full cycle and go, wait a minute, this was that car that, wait a minute, the one, you mean that same one that you pulled out of a lake 5 years ago? That's this car. And so it's always nice to, see them brought back. I think of one just real quick in Parsippany, New Jersey, after Hurricane Sandy, there was, I don't know whatever happened to the car, and it was full disclosure, but these folks, the car literally floated out into the Atlantic Ocean. It was a 2009 9.5 Griffin edition, super rare, one of probably like, I don't know, 10, 15 made or something like that, crazy for that year. Beautiful car. Anyway, saltwater bath, fully submerged rather into the ocean thanks to Hurricane Sandy. They bought it salvage and they stripped that thing down and replaced every single crevice, cavity, you name it, plug, wire, etc. on that car, and it looked factory spec, and it didn't smell like seawater either. So again, that's a lot of effort, and they were full disclosure about it. They weren't trying to flip it or anything, but it was just amazing. So a lot of love goes into saving some of these cars.
Yeah, mad respect for the work that I've seen people put into these cars. And, when you drive a work in progress like I do, it means even more to see how far somebody has come and how far they brought their car. So, yeah, it's really fantastic. Tell me about next year. Do we know yet where it's going to be?
We do. It's always a drum roll, and we always get claps and boos and cheers and tears and whatever you want to call it in between. It's difficult on the board to just select. We're a small board, and there's a lot at stake when we host these events. And over the time, I think people have grown to appreciate that. There's no perfect science to it. Our treasurer Jim has done a wonderful job of running data and models and charts and so forth to kind of really put some thought and science behind locations. And obviously, we want to go where the cars are to some degree. With that said, we did have a location pinpointed in the state of Illinois. That's changed very recently, right ahead of SOC, but we are still committed to doing something in the greater Illinois area, perhaps around Peoria, which is about 150 miles southwest of Chicago. So an easy 2 hour and change drive from Chicago if you want to fly in Midway or O'Hare or something like that. But we also think that Chicago is pretty darn centralized as well. So hopefully it'll inspire people to jump in their Saabs and head to the
Yeah,
next one.
I hope so too. it will be a 3-hour drive instead of a 13-hour drive for me. So that's not bad at all. I like that thought a lot.
But we do take feedback certainly into consideration, and again, everybody believe me, because I've had this conversation with many people, and the moment we announced in Seattle, there's cheers from the people that live as far away as Spokane, but then somebody in Miami says, "Well, forget that, I'm not coming," and then as soon as we announce it in Savannah, Georgia, somebody in Seattle's like, "Well, forget that." So,
Right.
you know, you can never please them all, but we try.
Yeah, well, hey, that's a nationwide organization. That's what you get. And you are all volunteers running this thing. I get that. People always come up with a bunch of ideas, and I saw it happen, Daniel. I saw people standing at the SOC saying, "Well, they should have ought to do this," and yeah, some great ideas. But at the show itself, it's a little late to take action. If I have a suggestion, what's the right thing to do?
You can submit feedback on our website. There is a contact us, which is saabclub.com. Very easy to remember and go to. And while I'm thinking about that as well, before I forget, anybody that has any pictures, stories, photos that they'd like to share about SOC or about anything they're doing related to Saab, if you couldn't make it, send us a picture of you washing your car if you couldn't make it to SOC or there in spirit, and you can submit photos directly on there. There's an upload link to send that, a very simple name and information and additional characters that you can put on there to submit it. That's an easy way to get published in the magazine and spread the word about the good things that are going on. But again, the feedback, we do welcome it. We spend a lot of time discussing this. It's not always the best time to take on feedback literally in the heat of the moment in the parking lot when somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I got a quick suggestion for next year." So it's not that it's just never the right time to do it that way, but we do entertain the feedback, or you can contact us on our Facebook page as well, or certainly email the club with any suggestions. And a lot of things have transpired from that. I mean, there's been interesting, stories and evolutions of how we've done stuff, not just for the convention, but things for the club. And we've taken the feedback. We recently changed the magazine, and Greg Abbott and Jen Gravely have done a really good job of launching that just this year, as you may have noticed yourself when you received the updated copies, and uh, and that came from member feedback as well.
And there are people who are not club members, and this show being on YouTube and Facebook is seen around the world. Tell people about the club itself, and the SOC meeting is the biggest event of the year. But what are some of the other benefits of membership? Happy to give you a plug and a chance to do that.
Oh, sure. Thank you on that. Well, really, with any club, it's our goal. We have a mission statement. It's really to bring the sub community together. And I mean, me personally, that's why I've been so heavily invested in it and so long. Is I've had to step back just a little bit over time and realize I cannot rescue every single sob and save every single situation. And anytime I meet somebody in a parking lot, at some point I have to cut it off and say, as enthusiastic as I am, I mean, even I have my limits. But I think the goal um, is to bring community together, really about saving the brand. Honestly, so many people are car enthusiasts, but then quite honestly, we get contacted all the time by people that are not necessarily enthusiasts, or more often than not, unfortunately, we do get approached quite a bit where people pass away and they say, my uncle or my grandmother, my aunt or whoever had this car and she just loved it, and I don't know anything about it. All I know is he loved it, etc. And we try to find homes or refer them to appropriate sources to restore, repair, to sell, etc. Because it's just important for us to carry the brand on. And really about connecting people with parts and putting people in contact to fix stuff. A real quick, simple example is people that have taken on the fun ownership of a new Gen 9.5 or the 9.4X. It's not a matter of if, matter of if, but when your light bars or tail lights will start acting quirky, as they would say. I love to tell that story because we have a resource and of how to fix that, and it's not any kickback situation whatsoever. It's just to be able to. There's cars. There was a period of where there was cars, about 34 new Gen 9.5s off the road in America because the tail lights weren't working. This is about 3 or 4 years ago in a crisis, and that's all it was. I mean, it's kind of hard to drive a car, period, safely if it has no brake lights. And so just simply educating somebody who might have arbitrarily bought that car because it was beautiful off of Craigslist or something, and they've never even owned a Saab, and they get it home in their driveway, and they're like, I don't know what to do. So we always enjoy marrying the situation to save somebody's day.
Yeah, and if you are not yet a member, you can still go to scna.com or saabclub.com.
Yep, both.
Saabclub.com. Yep, is the
Google it.
website. And lots of great resources there. There's a list of authorized service centers, lots of other information, online service manuals, lots of great stuff. The club really has done a good job in supporting all of us out here trying to keep our old Saabs on the road. Daniel, congratulations. Another year down. I look forward to seeing you in Illinois. And if there's anything I can do along the way, please let me know.
All right, we'll look for announcements for somewhere outside of Chicagoland. I think that's what the natives call it. So
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great. We'll be in touch.
appreciate you. Thanks for everything you do for the brand as well.
You bet. Take care, buddy. So I found this on Facebook, and I just want to share this because I think it really kind of tells the story quite well. Keith Hickson put this post up that says, I've been around Saabs for the past 12 years or so, and there isn't many where I live. This was my first SOC. I've been around many car groups over the years. I have to say, Saab people treat you like family. Everyone I encountered was welcoming and friendly. Most car groups love to criticize and talk up their cars, but not at SOC. Nothing but compliments and positive words from everyone. You know what? I think that about sums it up as best I could. Nice job, Heath. Glad you were there. I'm glad you were here tonight to learn more about the SOC 2022 out there in Sturgis, South Dakota. We'll see you next time around right here on Saab Talk Live. You take care.